Thank you very much for helping us out on Sibanye here, trying to get a better understanding of the company update report, which was released a couple of days ago. Take it away.
Thank you, Sarel, and good morning, everyone. I think I last spoke about Sibanye in March, so it hasn't been that long since we last discussed Sibanye. Since then, the prices has shot up to around 46, 47 Rand a share. Now it's back down to about 36 Rand. I'm just going to discuss the quarterly operational update that was released in the beginning of May. It's quite a short one this morning. So let's just look at the key drivers for Sibanye. So the first one is the exchange rates. Since the last report, the Rand has weakened by 17%. So it's gone from 15.22 to 17.76. Because Sibanye reports in Rand and it trades in Rand, that's normally quite good for producers that are Rand denominated. PGM prices were down. So for 4E PGMs, they were 31% down, same as 2E PGMs. 2E PGMs are the rhodium and palladium that come from the US underground operations. That was down 31%. 3E PGMs is the recycling PGMs, so that includes rhodium as well, is down 3%, and gold was flat. And then on production volumes, we've got for the South African operations, production volumes were 8% lower, and that was impacted by load shedding and theft of copper cables. What was quite interesting in this set of results is that they quantified the production impact, and the impact to production was higher from theft of copper cables than it was from the load curtailment. So we all know that load shedding is a problem, but this quarter's results highlighted that theft is quite a big issue. On SA Gold, the production volumes were up 46%, and that was primarily because in the same time last year, there was wage negotiations and industrial actions which impacted the production. So it's basically strong growth off a low base. In the US underground operations, production volumes were down 17%, and that was from a shaft incident which impacted production. And then on the US PGM recycling volumes, they were down nearly 60%, and that was because there's been quite low scrappage rates, and that's been management has blamed that on the weaker economic environment and people buying less new cars. The final driver is costs, and this is basically the one out of the four drivers. This is the one that's mostly in management's control. All-in costs for US underground operations were 50% higher, and most of that's got to do with the costs associated with the shaft incident. And then for SA Gold, they were 25% lower, and for the SA PGM operations, they were 4% lower. So all in all, the guidance was kept the same except for the US underground operations. Because of that shaft incident, the volumes are going to be slightly lower and costs a little bit higher. We have adjusted for that change in guidance in our evaluation, but it hasn't moved the dial by much. We're still keeping our hold recommendation. Our intrinsic value is about 41 Rand, which is shown here in this table. And basically, the change in guidance was offset by a weaker Rand. So net, the intrinsic value is still 41 Rand, and the share price is, at the time of this report, was exactly the same as it was when we previously released the report in March. So it looks quite similar, and our hold recommendation still holds. I'll now hand over to Shaun for the technicals before we go to Q&A.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. You can see the chart there of Sibanye. Yeah, you can see it's moving sideways, like we always say with these charts, moving sideways, trendless market. This is actually going on nearly for 3 years. So where the share price is trading at the moment, we're actually trading at 3-year lows going back to June 2020. I'm calling this trend at the moment also long-term bearish. It's below its 200-day moving average. It's, as I say, it's trading sideways. You can see that resistance level and that support level throughout about 950 trading range. That upper resistance levels at 45.64, and at lower level, as Matt just said, now is around about 35.40. I see the market it opened up slightly this morning. It's 34.48 at the moment. Yeah, it needs to bounce back. Obviously, bounce a bit higher. It has to cross through below those or above those 2 moving averages. The 21-day, which is that red line, which is about 37.83, and just slightly above that would be the 40-day, which is 38.65. And the 200-day moving average is at 41.27, which is very close, well, close to what Matt said now is the intrinsic value of 41. So those are the areas that will present near-term resistance if it bounces from these levels. At this point in time, you can see the lower oscillator bottom there shows the MACD. It is trading in oversold territory, and you can see it's still pointing downwards. So there's no clear bullish signals as yet, and I also stay with Matt's recommendation of a hold if you do hold the stock. If you're looking at maybe nibbling at these levels, as I say, we are trading at 3-year lows. I don't expect to be able to go much lower from here. Thank you, Matt.
Thanks, Shaun.
Thanks, Shaun. Thanks very much. Guys, I remind you, you can ask your questions by putting on your mic and your camera for us. It'll be nice to see your face, and otherwise you can type it in the chat. I'll go check the chat for questions as well. Shaun, I also had a look at the chart, and that 3-year low is certainly looks like it's being broken at the moment. So I think maybe a little bit lower, and I was interested in Matt's bear case there around $30. I had a look at the weekly chart and going back quite a distance, and it looks like it could actually go to about 31 Rand or around there. And I suppose if the current electricity problems and stuff persist, then these guys are going to find it hard to keep producing. I am going to check quickly for questions. Let's see in the chat there. Clive says, thank you. It's a pleasure, Clive. Matt, there was one thing that I was thinking. You mentioned the recycling volumes that were down. Obviously, this must play a part for Sibanye in that they mentioning the fact that there's less recycling. It must be cheaper for them to recycle than to produce new plat, I guess.
Yeah, so the recycling was down. It was down. The volumes were down nearly 60%, but that is in line with guidance. So it's not like it's a huge shock. Normally production numbers don't actually impact these big producers by that much. But the recycling business is an important business for Sibanye. If you look at revenue, the US underground operations are about 10% of revenue, and recycling, I think, is about a quarter of revenue, about 25-26%. And then what's helping or hurting the US recycling is that the US recycling is the 3 EPGMs that includes rhodium. So you've got on 2E PGMs. 2E is for platinum and palladium, and those prices are both increasing, and forward expectations are quite positive for that. Whereas rhodium prices have come down quite significantly, and the outlook is also quite bearish on rhodium. So that comes into play for the recyclers.
Thanks, Matt. Yeah, I think Sibanye has become a very diversified company through all the different metals. I mean, they started out with gold. And I think it's part of the protection that they're enjoying at the moment. I don't think we'll see them back at COVID levels of $17, but they can certainly go slightly lower from here. This is a good question. Tace says, how will entering the lithium business impact their growth? Lithium's on everybody's lips because of batteries. Matt, do you have any idea how big their lithium business is?
So at the moment, it's very small. In fact, I don't think they're making any money from lithium at the moment. But they are pivoting into green metals, which are the metals that are going to be used for the batteries required to store energy. So how will it impact their growth? I think it's going to impact their growth in two ways. Firstly, there's going to be a massive demand for lithium going forward because of electric vehicles. The emission. So on EVs, the Europeans, China, by 2030, there's estimates that more than 50% of the cars sold, and in fact, including the United States as well, by 2030, more than 50% of the cars sold are going to be battery electric vehicles, which means there's going to be a huge demand for lithium, which doesn't exist at the moment, or it's growing at the moment. But where it could also help Sibanye, so they are getting into the green metals business, so there will be a growth driver there. But forecasts at the moment, and this is one of the reasons why we quite bullish on platinum, is that the demand of lithium exceeds the supply realities. At the moment, there's not enough lithium reserves to fulfill the demand that's needed in 2030. So we think the market is they're underestimating the demand for PGMs, because with the strict emission regulation standards, there's going to be a huge demand for PGMs, especially towards the end of 2030, when they realize that those targets are unrealistic.
Thank you, Matt. I see Swadesh put an extract from the last report at 31 December about the batteries in the chat for the guys, if they want to read that. It says, and I agree with you, Matt, I don't think the demand for lithium has really picked up as much as it will. Funny that the guys in the dirty business are getting involved in delivering clean energy. Flip.
And I also might just add that Sibanye in the past has been successful in pivoting out of gold and into platinum.
Yeah.
And with these mining companies, a lot of these factors are out of their control. So if you, on the first slide of mine, we've got the exchange rate, volumes, currencies, all of those things. Management's got very little control of, but what they do have in their control is asset allocation. So Sibanye's got a very good track record of good asset allocation. They got into PGMs at the right time, and now they're getting into battery metals. So so it's that's a positive for Sibanye.
Yeah, you might be right. We're looking for perfect trading signals here. And the thing is, they are opposition to benefit from things that could happen in the future, and not trying to bottom pick, but it could be presenting a trading opportunity soon. I think we just need to see how this little dip plays out, and what sort of influence over the next couple of weeks this Eskom story is going to have. I don't see any further questions. Can I ask that you put up your hand if you have any further questions? Otherwise, I'm going to close the call. Yeah, there's a hand. Gordon, go for it.
Morning, Sarel. Thank you again for presenting this program. I just want to know the resources here, the quality of the resources. Is this a long-term holding? I'm quite new to Sibanye, but I believe it is being held in some top offshore portfolios as such. Could you just tell me what the quality of the resources are, please?
So I'm not quite sure what you mean by the quality of resources.
Is it a long-term mine? How does it compare with like Anglo American or Billiton and those companies?
I think Gordon means the reserves. I think that's
right.
Sort of what everybody's asking.
I'll probably have to if I could try to get back to you on that, Gordon. Yeah, but how it compares with the other ones is that I mean, if we look at reserves, the 90% of the world's PGMs come from South Africa. So basically, all of them are very high, got a very high concentration to South Africa, and I imagine the grades are quite uniform within the platinum reef where they are.
Yeah, I think what we'll do, Matt, is we'll check out if we can find something on how many years of reserves they think Sibanye's got left and so on. You see those predictions often, and I think then we'll get back to Gordon, and I'll pop you a mail, Gordon. Once Matt and I find the answer for you, we don't know it offhand. Richard says, do we know of anybody else that's getting involved in lithium? I suppose we don't, Matt, because, I mean, we just looked at this because we know Sibanye has got an involvement in lithium, unless you are aware of other mining companies that are also starting to play in that space.
Yeah, I think most mining producers are going to get into them, but it's going to be the more diversified ones. So the ones that we look at, we've got on the platinum side, we've got Implats and Amplats, and those are quite highly focused on PGM metals. And then on the gold side, we've got Harmony, Goldfields, and Anglo Gold, and also quite highly focused on gold. I'm sure there's some of the global producers, global miners, and more diversified miners that are getting into lithium.
Thanks, Matt. Sudesh says, do we know how load shedding is impacting Sibanye, and what would the impact be on the bottom line? We know for a fact, Sudesh, that the mines are using 30%, the mines and refineries are using 30% of Eskom's capacity. So whilst I don't know exactly what the impact of the load shedding is on the mines and what kind of provisions they're making to procure their own electricity and that, I do think it's quite a whack they're taking because of the electricity. Am I right, Matt?
Yeah. So they did quantify it. It was about 5,000 ounces in this quarter. But in any ways, all South African miners are making plans to generate their own power. But this is like kind of a double-edged sword for platinum, because the more that load shedding impacts the production of platinum, the more it constrains the supply, which is another reason to be bullish for platinum, because there's a very high demand for platinum. But as I said, 90% of the world's platinum comes from South Africa. So there's a limited supply, and those load shedding risks are quite unique to our country.
Yeah, I think there's potential, and whilst we don't have a clear-cut signal here as to when to enter, I think we must keep a close eye, and we'll keep the audience informed as much as we can, because I think there is potential for a bit of a bounce. Not much, because I mean the upside target is about $50 on the bull case, and the bottom side target's about $30 on the bear case. So closer to the bear case at the moment, but we could have another bounce to $45 in a relatively short term for the punters. Long term, probably have to hold this, like Matt and them have said. I don't see any further questions. Matt, thank you very much for sharing with us. Shaun, thanks for highlighting the technical aspect of it for us. And we look forward to hosting you guys again next week, Thursday. Have a nice day.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers.